Hey, it's Andrea, the South African girl living in Canada, and I'm back with Vincent Heys today. We are talking about RRSPs today. Vincent, it's good to see you. I'm glad we're talking about this finally.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Awesome. In our last video, we spoke about RESPs and said there's so many acronyms. Let's talk about this today. Vincent, what is an RRSP?
Andrea, it's a registered retirement savings plan. So it's really a product that people mostly use for saving for retirement.
Okay.
Now, before I go into the detail of that, I think it's important for people just to kind of know where this fit into the chain of events.
Yes.
So when you save for retirement, or actually, any goal, your asset allocation is probably the most important decision to make. And so that is how much you put strategically into equities, bonds, cash, Canadian equities, let's say emerging market equities, for example. That asset allocation is the most important driving factor in terms of getting your return to where you want it to be. The second one is the type of product that you purchase to take hold of that asset allocation. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can either buy or open an investment account, which is really just an account. There's no legal requirements around that account. But then if you open an RRSP or tax-free savings account, or even like, let's say, a participating life product, those are products available that are governed to a large extent by the Income Tax Act. So in terms of what happens if you put money into that account and how that grows with or without tax, and what happens after, when you pull money out again. So just for the listeners to know that second decision is probably the most important one after asset allocation. Once you decide on the type of product that you buy, it's then, what fund do you access?
Yes.
Or, which shares do you buy, which bonds, ETFs, for example, mutual funds, segregated funds that you can purchase. So then it's a decision in terms of which fund managers or funds or investments that I buy. Okay, so that's just the lay down of that. So the benefit of an RRSP, for example, in the retirement side is you put money with pre-tax dollars in. Mm-hmm. So I can put money into that account before getting taxed.
Okay.
It grows tax-free, but then one day when I retire from that account, it doesn't mean that I have to retire from my job. It just means that I retire from that account.
Okay.
There are then certain rules in terms of what happens to take the money out again.
Okay.
And so in that case, there's obviously income tax that have to be paid when you draw money out.
In terms of the RRSP, I think there are a lot of people that watch this channel. As you know, there are immigrants, people specifically also coming from South Africa. Can we talk a little bit about that and say, how does this differ for South Africans when they're coming over to Canada and all of that?
Let's compare maybe how the RRSP is different to a retirement annuity in South Africa.
Okay, great.
That's maybe the easiest way to explain for South African immigrants coming in. I put money pre-tax dollars in. Okay. It grows tax-free. And then one day I can take money out and then it's taxable. So those are similar. Mm-hmm. The differences really come in Canada, there's an 18% cap of your contributions, of your 18% of your salary of the previous year that you can put in to retirement annuity within the RRSP. With a retirement annuity, it's 27.5%. Oh. Okay, so it's a little bit lower, but stats also show that in South Africa, for example, very few people go up to the 27.5% anyway. 18% is more than enough for people to put money in. However, there is a cap in terms of how much that is, in how much you can put into the RRSP. Okay. So unfortunately, there is a cap there. In an RRSP in Canada, there's no limitation or very little limitation in terms of how you can invest the money. You can really invest everything into equities, everything in Canada, everything offshore. Whereas in South Africa, it's governed by the Regulation 28, and you can only invest up to 45% offshore in South Africa. So that's great in Canada because now you're not limited in terms of that. Yeah. The downside of an RRSP compared to a retirement annuity is really at death, for example. So if Karen and I pass away, that money that's still in the RRSP is taxed at the day before we pass away, the day before the last one passes away. So obviously if it's a big bulky amount, it will go onto your final tax return. Mm-hmm. You're getting taxed on that as income, and so you can pay up to 50% tax. Sure. It's gone. Yeah. Okay, so and then your kids inherit the other 50%. Whereas in South Africa, the retirement annuities goes over to your beneficiaries, and they pay the income tax on their scales. Oh. Okay, so it's if your kids' tax scale is at 20%, they will pay 20% on that. Some other minor changes or differences, RRSPs in Canada, you have to move it into what we call a RIF as opposed to a living annuity in South Africa. And in Canada, you have to move it into that RIF before the age of 71, whereas in Canada, or in South Africa, you can keep it into retirement annuity, and effectively you never have to retire from that retirement annuity in South Africa. In Canada, you have to retire from the RRSP at some point and before 71.
Didn't know that. Okay, interesting.
Another one, for example, is that when you retire from the RRSP and move it into a RIF, there are certain limitations in terms of how much you need to draw down minimum. And that starts at 4%, it goes up to 20%, and in South Africa it's minimum at 2.5%. There's some percentages kind of thing, but I would say to a large extent it's very similar. There are a little bit of nuances in Canada, and probably the biggest one is you always work out your contribution room for the tax year. So in Canada, your tax year runs till the end of the calendar year. At the end of the calendar year, your tax consultant will work out your contribution room. And based on that, you can make contributions for the next year. So there are a little bit of nuances there that people just need to be aware of.
Okay. So then with the RRSP, what are your tips?
Andrea, so if you have a family setup where there's a breadwinner that earns a lot of income and the other person not, then you can open a spousal RRSP in the name of the spouse, and you get the tax benefit of that as the main breadwinner. So that helps in terms of income splitting to some extent. And I guess another tip is really just to make sure that the risk profile of the RRSP is set up in such a way that there's enough risk that you take on, because I mean normally the RRSPs you're going to keep for retirement and even beyond retirement. So it means it's a long time from now till that date, and so just make sure that there's enough risk in that portfolio, so enough equities in that portfolio not to be too conservative. Another one that I think is important just for the listeners is to make sure that you don't over contribute. Okay, so always make sure that you stay within your contribution limit. There are penalties that you will pay if you over contribute for that year. Okay, so just make sure that you're underneath that threshold every year.
All right.
And then maybe just for business owners, you know, it's better not to I don't want to say not to take an RRSP, but the better way is to save within the corporation as opposed to pay yourself a salary. You pay tax on that. Yes, you get tax benefit, but eventually you'll pay tax on, you know, taking the money out again. So with business owners, it's sometimes better to rather save within the corporation as opposed to RRSPs. And you know, I think it always comes back to this thing of making sure that you have a combination of products. Yes, you want to have asset allocation spread out, as we said, but on the product side, again, you want to make sure that you have money in RRSPs because you get a tax benefit now.
That's right.
You want to make sure that you have money in a tax-free savings account. You don't get the benefit upfront, but it grows tax-free. And also, if you have investment accounts, joint investment accounts between the husband and wife, it just gives you different levers to push or to pull at retirement to reduce your tax. Whereas if you put everything into RRSPs, you are going to get tax on that, and that's it. You don't have anything else to play with. It's always good to have a spread of different accounts. And obviously, you know, if you're a high income earner, you want to make use of the RRSPs to the maximum because you pay a high marginal tax rate. If you're a lower income earner, your tax rate is lower, and it may make sense not to take an RRSP and just pay the tax up front and put it into an investment account. Because the tax arbitrage between, you know, putting pre-tax dollars in now than getting the money out later on is lower. It just helps for the higher income earners to get the tax benefit between now and after retirement.
Vincent, if I go into WealthStack, will it help me with my RRSP as well? So I'll be able to track all of that?
Yeah, so again, you know, how much do I need for retirement? You know, that's a big question always for people. Go to WealthStack, open a profile. It will take you through a sequence of questions, complete that, and will give you an indication in terms of how much you need for retirement. And then it also asks you, you know, what accounts you have. So with that, it's helpful to see, you know, how much you need to save to get to that retirement goal.
I think that's key for people. It's always the magic number. We just want to know how much. But unfortunately, you have to do a bit of the work. So go look at wealthstack.ca. It's really, really amazing to see your stuff, all your information on a dashboard, and obviously what your top up should be. And from there, if you need more information, you can definitely get that from Vincent. So thanks so much for today. That was interesting.
Thank you.
And you will see there's a playlist on my YouTube channel with all of our discussions together, talking about all of these amazing things for your financial health and wealth. So thanks, Vincent. Again, it's been good. I don't think it'll be the last one. Please post your comments if there's other things that you want to know about anything to do with finance and wealth. Happy to answer your questions. So if you like what you saw today, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you get the videos as they upload straight in your inbox. Have a great one.